Well, first, welcome to Meadowfest. Oh, come on, you can give yourself a better hand than that. Welcome to Meadowfest. All right, that's much more like it. I think we should give a hand also to Bill and to George for helping to put this together. Acacia also, we're lucky to be here. Some of us are lucky to be alive and be here. So we'll talk about that. Anyway, my name's Frank Andrick. I'm a poet. I used to come here to the Chateau. I was Timber Creek's lyricist. And after they broke up, I ended up, a bunch of shit happened. I moved to France, and then I moved to Sacramento, of all places, and that's where I live now. I hosted a poetry reading there for 17 years, and then finally ended that. And then along came COVID, and so this is my first gig in 3 years, and I'm really looking forward to it. I want to thank you all for coming here. This is going to be great for me, and I hope it's going to be great for you. I got a friend with me, Chad Williams over here. Chad's a guitarist, multi-instrumentalist. We do a lot of recordings together and have some videos on YouTube under the name of Dino Crowley. Part Dean Martin, part Aleister Crowley. So I'm going to start off with a poem here that very good chance it was actually read here. There was a day here when Charles Bukowski and Diane DePrima read here, right out here in the meadow with a bunch of other poets. I wasn't well known yet. I was a lyricist. Here's Charles Bukowski. It's called My Cats. By the way, William suggested this poem to me, and I'm a cat guy, so here we go. My cats. I know, they are limited, have different needs and concerns, but I watch and I learn from them. I like the little they know, which is so much. They complain, but never worry. They walk with a surprising dignity. They sleep with a direct simplicity that humans just can't understand. Their eyes are more beautiful than our eyes, and they can sleep 20 hours a day without hesitation or remorse. When I am feeling low, all I have to do is watch my cats, and my courage returns. I study these creatures. They are my teachers. Thank you. I'll be back. Charles Bukowski. Okay, one of the forms I work with in poetry is this French form called pensées, and it's kind of like first thought, best thought, and then you just leave it. So they're just kind of like, thought bubbles that you have. So here are some pensées. Time heals all wounds. I tell myself that time after time after time. A living death sentence is the knowledge that my many flaws will keep me away from what I want most. Assuming credit for doing good is not too far removed from doing evil. Into sensation which is finite, she imported the infinite. Beauty has a new name. It belongs to you. Since we are born naive, how does the spirit develop at all? We must be programmed, so to speak, to become dissatisfied with ourselves in order to become our antithesis, spirit. Logic is the lowest form of magic. At what point does the chemistry of the mind become the alchemy of the spirit? The journey from the cut to the wound to the scar and to healing is a long one. And what of the soul's blood? Invisible streams pouring out from wounds too terrible to see. What closed door, what wall can be erected that can shut off these things that a grave cannot hold? Thoughts, images, emotions, and dreams. I fear I have come to haunt my own house. Remember, in spiritus, to haunt is always greater than to possess. And in that spirit, I hope I haunt you forever. I want to be the hierophant of an unapprehended inspiration. Thank you. Give it up for my friend Chad here, too. Okay. Coming up next, I'm going to hit a publication. I know The Cure never played here, but they're one of my favorite bands, and I worked for various record companies too, so I got to know The Cure and Robert Smith fairly well. I wrote this poem and showed it to him, and he picked one line out of it and said, "That's as good as anything Rimbaud or Baudelaire ever wrote." I hugged him. It was great. The poem is called "The Poet is a Thief of Fire." To be a poet entails more than the writing of poems. It demands a commitment to live and die with great style and an even greater sadness. To wake up each morning with the fever raging and to know that it can never be extinguished except by death. And yet, to be convinced that this suffering, this sensitivity carries its own unique reward. I want to be the hierophant of an unapprehended inspiration. The poet is a thief of fire. Okay, this poem here is called "Your Softness Becomes You." It treats kind of the idea of softness, how like water could be soft and yet it shapes rocks. Women are soft and yet they can make our lives beautiful. And just the very softness that we have inside of us that sometimes becomes our strength when we least expect it. So it's about all those things. Your softness becomes you. The softest part, blessing in disguise, recognized, landscape, mindscape, dreamscape, symbols and stories for those who know and live more than 6 senses. The softness of water shaping the stone, fever of fire, phenomena in motion, takes delight and voice in the eyes, where light turns to melody, a sound that can radiate storms. Beauty blossoms in tiny explosions, a balm to my brain. This mind of mine, swarming with sigils and symbols and snakes on a cross. Beauty is born and reborn, moment by moment in fire and water. Your softness slips from you, a pneumatic vapor streaming over a wild terrain. It captures my imagination, a dream evoked by a dream. Enveloped in atmospheres, a state of softness, the state of softness. Your softness becomes you, you are what you are. Your softness becomes you, you are what you are. Your softness becomes you, you are what you are. Thank you very much.
You got another one?
I do.
Go for it.
Up here. Thanks, Len. This poem here is actually in the John Steinbeck Museum. They put a call out for people who had written works that were bouncing off of John Steinbeck, and seemed like a good idea. I remembered this from a book of Steinbeck's, and I wrote it down, and And then someone remembered the scene and said I should watch the movie, and I said no, I'm just going to stick with my 6-year-old impression of reading this book. So here we go. It's a John Steinbeck inspired prose piece called Hard Candy. I am 8 years old, reading The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck in Citrus Heights, California. I'm traveling with the Job family, dust bowlers on their way to one of the promised lands. Poor folk, everything they own strapped to the back of a truck, dust from their pass home filling in the cracks on their aged adult faces, like pancake and rouge on a news anchor's face, and their children's faces aglow with the unknown that only children, no matter what their age, can bring to bear. This is the wisdom and the magic of the young, and the young at heart. The Jodes, rickety old black Ford, pulls up to the gas station placed for effect in that proverbial middle of nowhere that is always somewhere, or probably just around the corner. They pull up. Dad Jode starts to pump the gasoline. Noticing the restlessness of the kids, he hands a penny to the oldest one, the son, calluses clinging to the dirty brown copper orb. He deposits the penny in the young one's hand as he says, "Well, why don't you and your sister go into the store and pick yourselves a little candy for the road while I fill her up and wash her down a bit?" The children enter the store, racing to the candy counter. The girl, 6 years old, the boy pushing 8 or so himself, their eyes mesmerized by the color, sizes, and shapes of the candy that is to be found in this little piece of kitty heaven. "Didn't know there was so much candy to be found anywhere," he says to his little sister. The little girl says nothing as her saucer eyes tell all in mute testimony. 4 eyes scan the shelves back and forth, up and down, taking in the sights of so much good and plenty, sights they'd never seen before. Didn't know the world could be so bright and pretty and offer so much choice. Didn't know about the spending power of a penny and what a heart has to offer. "Excuse me, ma'am," the young boy almost whispers in manner of politeness, awed by the good and plenty. "Excuse me, please. Those big candies over there in the corner, up there in the top, ma'am, they wouldn't be penny candy, would they? Because all I got is a penny to spend between me and my little sister." The counter woman looks down behind the counter where she can see the prices posted. "Big Fire Gumballs," reads the price sheet, 5 cents a piece. She looks at the dirty face of the little girl, knows that destiny will hold a lot of the kind of life this girl does not nor will ever deserve. The human potential is at stake. The stuff we're made of is being tested here. Her eyes meet the boy's eyes. She reads the question mark of hope inside them and on his raised brows. He, by experience, reads and projects the refusal he has already come to know as, "That's just the way things are. You can't have that. You don't need that. That's just the way things are for people like us." For people like us? Yeah, that's just the way things are. That's just how it goes. It's just the way it is unless someone decides to say no. Decides to make a choice. And this woman, at this moment, this woman who had seen them all, been there, done it, heard every story, stopped cold. And then she was moved by something she did not understand. She looked at the 2 faces looking up at hers. She looked at them and the big shiny gumballs. She glanced at the price for those nickel candies and she said real slow, like a taffy pull. She said, "Why no, young man, them candies is 2 for a penny candies. Can I get you a couple of them?" "Oh, yes, ma'am, if you please," exclaimed the young man, drawing himself up to his full length, extending his offer of 1 penny with one hand while he held his sister's hand with the other. "Oh, yes, ma'am. I'll take 1 for me, a blue one, please, and 1 for those red ones for my sister. That's her favorite color." Still overwhelmed by everything and all things, he finally looked at the woman in the eye and said, Thank you, ma'am. Me and my sister, well, we ain't never seen candies that big before. Do you think they'll have more candy like that out there in California? Thanks a lot.
Frank Andrick, how about that? Man, I'm glad I took that acid about 20 minutes ago. That was fantastic. Give it up for Frank.
Thank you.
Man, I really felt like it was back in the 50 years ago out here, or whatever it was, in the 60s.
I wish I could have read this stuff then. I got one last thank you to push out to anybody. I haven't heard any bikes pull up, but man, the Hells Angels were absolutely gorgeous to Timber Creek. They carried our pianos in. We had a stand-up piano and later baby grand. And every time our truck pulled up, man, guys would come out there, these big burly guys, and just pick up those pianos and walk them off like it was nothing, you know. So if you're here, you know some people who will be here later. Thank them for me. They help mold the personality of this place too much. And Fred Kramer, I hope he's here somewhere too, because he was definitely a big thing of energy and was here. Anyway, thanks a lot. It's really been an honor and a pleasure reading for you.
Give it up for Frank.